and you couldn't imagine that they were going to make a ski area out of this development.
Where's Georgian Peaks and what's it all about?
What pure insanity. It's just, it's nuts. If you sat on 26 and looked up that hill and said, yeah, I can make a ski club out of this place. Are you crazy?
After we'd started, we became aware that we had weather problems here.
In 1959, one young man's desire to ski outweighed all common sense. Ian Rogers, a young law student from Ottawa, came home from skiing in Europe and wanted more. So he grabbed some old maps from Queen's Park, haggled for some land on an unknown piece of the Niagara Escarpment, about 100 miles from nowhere, got some pals together, grabbed some shovels, and got started. This is the story of the Georgian Peak Ski Club.
I'd like to see if there was something in Ontario that was somewhat better, more mountainous than Blue Mountain.
Looking around for something new, Craigleith had announced the prospect of opening a ski club. Osler had already been started in 1948, I believe.
It's just one thing after another of a group of guys who were interested in skiing, and we all kind of went from there.
But they were too snooty for me, and
we sure weren't snooty, I'll tell you.
Couldn't afford it, so what? And those were the days when you invited all your friends, and with one bathroom, we could sleep about a dozen. And it was great fun.
Skiing in post-war Ontario hadn't gotten very far. There was Blue Mountain, and in 1949, Bill Kingsmill and Struan Robertson started the Osler Bluffs Ski Club, the first of its kind, a privately funded ski club. Just think of the possibilities, a place for you and all your pals to go skiing. Buck Rogers wanted his own place too. It was convincing everyone else that was going to be the tricky part.
I guess we were in the lineup one day, and this man was coming up and down the lineup, this young man, and he was just raving about what was happening over at the hills over closer to Thornbury, that he had great plans ahead, and you better join now because, we're filling up, and a lot of people are signing up to join this brand new ski club.
We got a group together, other people became interested, and went, and we started to, I went out and got options on the 5 pieces of property that were necessary to create a ski area here.
Just as everything seemed to be going Buck's way, everything wasn't. Buck could only acquire 4 of the 5 lots needed. Without that crucial 5th lot, a whole lot of nothing was the only thing that was going to get done.
There were 5, I got 4. 5th one was a piece of property owned by 3 brothers, and I had options from the other owners, and that was no problem. They were quite easy to get. But the Hartmans just wouldn't deal with us. They didn't want to talk to us, and they would talk, but they wouldn't talk seriously, and they certainly weren't going to sell their land or even lease it. We could not get this piece of Hartman land, which went right across the center of the mountain, right from east to west, and cut the whole thing off. And without it, it couldn't operate, it couldn't work.
For the first time, Buck and his dream of the Georgian Peak Ski Club was stopped dead in its tracks. Buck put everything on hold, joined the Osler Bluffs Ski Club, and tried to forget about his dream. But he couldn't, especially when Terry Wardrop, a young lawyer who worked with Buck, asked him a fateful question one day.
And he came to me after a couple of weeks and he said, you know, I have a friend, and I think that if I talk to her, this lady called Betty Cox, she might be able to persuade her sister to get her husband and her brother-in-laws to make a deal. And within a couple of weeks, the Hartmans had come right around, and they were very cooperative and very helpful. And they gave us a very, very decent deal to lease the property for, I think it was 99 years. It was longer than I would ever need. And even at that time, I was only 23 or 24, I guess. And we proceeded then to get on with the development of what we now know as Georgian Peaks.
Now that Buck's dream of Georgian Peaks was looking like a reality, he put his plans into high gear. And that's when he met his mentor, Ross Wilson, who helped snap this crazy dream into focus.
I think one of the perhaps the most important things that happened at that early stage was that I had met Ross Wilson. And Ross Wilson was about 20 years older than I was. He was a keen skier at Blue Mountain. And Ross was a big help in a lot of ways in putting this place together.
But then as Ross got more involved with Georgian Peaks, we started to understand what was going on.
So basically, we were really sort of following in the steps of Osler, but we were, the concept of the club was quite different.
Yeah, they were great people. There were some wonderful people at the Peaks, really great. But I don't know why they chose the Peaks over Osler, probably because of better challenging hills or something.
Because this was a public ski area. It was Lake Blue Mountain. The whole idea was that we would attract people in to ski and pay their money, and
the club and skiing was to begin on the 1st of December 1960.
Armed with a bit of seed money and 200 new best friends, Buck, Ross, and anyone else they could rally got busy building the Peaks. It wasn't easy. It was 1960, and there weren't exactly a lot of how to build a ski club starter kits out there, so they adopted a learn-as-you-go attitude. Excavators shaped the hill, chairlifts were ordered, and a clubhouse was built. And overseeing this orchestrated mayhem was none other than Peaks legend, Bill Whalen.
Bill Whalen was hired as the manager. He had been head of the ski patrol in Mont Tremblant.
he came to Toronto with his family, with his wife Mary and 2 little children, and he got to know Ross Wilson. And Ross Wilson suggested him as a possible manager of this place, and he was interested.
And so we convinced Bill. I can remember sitting at a party up in Blue Mountain, convincing him that he should leave his job, take his family and move them up here full-time and become the general manager of this new ski club.
Bill built this mountain. I mean, we conceived it. A lot of it, the conception of it was in other people, but Bill was the one who got up there, and he worked with the guys that cut the trails and pushed the earth and the bulldozers.
Bill Whalen moved earth, built his own cranes, cleared runs. In short, he invented Georgian Peaks. A 3,000-foot chairlift was ready, along with the T-bar and the rope tow. Champlain and early versions of Minute Mile and Thunder were carved into the mighty escarpment. And by December, the Peaks was open for business.
Well, certainly the big event was the Beehive.
So that was in December of 1960 when we opened. In February into March, we staged the biggest ski race in the world. Every major top skier in the world came to Georgian Peaks to ski because it was the first race in which a skier could earn money by winning a ski race.
Beehive Golden Corn Syrup presents the first professional Beehive Giant Slalom, being held at Georgian Peaks, located on the southern shores of Georgian Bay, between the towns of Collingwood and Thornbury in the province of Ontario, Canada. This is the first race ever scheduled where the greatest names of the skiing world will compete for more than $4,000 in cash prizes.
Nobody had ever done it before. No, there had never been a professional race. I remember Ernie McCullough telling me about it months before the race. He was so excited because this was going to be a race for money and the best in the world were going to be there. And they attracted the best. They had the absolute best guys.
The race will be held on Georgian Peak's famous Thunder Run, 3/4 of a mile long and a 770-foot vertical drop. Entered to compete in the Beehive Giant Slalom are such world-famous names as Austria's Tony Spies, Andro Motorer, Christian Pravda, Norway's Stein Eriksen and Sigurd Rockney, Canada's Ernie McCullough, and a host of other top names from the United States and Canada. This is truly the first time that the great names in the world of skiing will compete for cash prizes.
There was no snow. There was absolutely no snow. And Bill had to bring the army in, along with everybody else, and take the snow out of the woods with the coal chutes, you know, the metal coal chutes, and bring about enough snow to have a 10-foot run down Thunder.
We all took time off work to come up and shovel snow, stamp snow. And it rained, it was ugly, and we worked our tails off, but the day itself was just bluebird.
So yes, the Beehive was the beginning of the Peaks, and it was so spectacular that I think it drew a lot of people as members.
And I know many of our members were over there, and we were over shoveling snow on a course that was made. We just made a little course down the hill, a narrow course down the hill. You can tell there wasn't much snow around. And if you got off, a couple of guys got off the track kind of badly.
Indeed, a couple of guys got off badly, but over 8,000 spectators came out to witness the young Norwegian ski legend Stein Eriksen take top honors.
The Peaks have developed a terrific racing heritage. Just look at the kids they've produced.
Certainly the names I remember would be Jim Kirby, Doug Kirby at that point in time, Brian and Karen Stemmel.
It started from a little bit of a rugged club. You know, it's steep, it's right on Georgian Bay, it's windy, it's icy, it's beautiful.
My very first race team, I was 9 years old. Rich Luck was the coach. There was nothing like today. There was one team. The beauty of that was we all kind of hung in together and we all raced together. Because it was a little bit of a smaller, tighter community, there was only half a dozen teams. It wasn't like we have today, the huge program that they run today. We all kind of hung out together, we raced together, we skied together. It was, it was great. Ski racing is a great confidence booster.
We happen to call it racing, but for racing that means a different thing for every kid, whether they're first or last.
just having that authentic experience of pushing out of the start gate, going over, tipping over Rogers, tipping over Thunder, tipping over anything at the peaks, it's challenging.
Terrain, it's hard terrain. It's the only terrain, FIS homologated terrain in this area. So it's steep, it's hard. You talk to any racer, whether it's, Canadian GS skier or US GS skier, they say this is as hard as any GS.
Yeah, I've been a coach for most of my life, at least 45 years at Georgian Peaks here, and all the kids have grown up here. I have 4 boys. That's the second boy and 1 girl. And I found out, I know that the peaks and the skiing help to raise our kids to become better people, very good persons, which is the most important.
This is very much a racing club. When I was growing up, that's how I remembered it. My brother and I did freestyle along with the Pryor boys. We were probably the only, maybe 6 of us that did it at the club. Actually, my brother got so good, in fact, that in around 1977, he won the Canadian National Championships for mogul skiing. So that was pretty impressive in the day.
And it teaches us from such a young age to brave something. Brave the pitch, brave the flats, brave the chairlift.
Sometimes the fondest memories are of some of the lower level skiers who just kept sticking in there, and they were just having a good time, enjoying. They were improving themselves, even though they may have been dead last in a race. They were getting closer to not being dead last. So it was some real good times.
Well, I think it's important, and that's why one of the reasons I continue to do it is to help the kids and give them the ability to have races.
Everyone will agree, and even people from other clubs will agree, we have the best terrain for training on and for racing on. And look at the number of great racers we produced. Without ski racing, this club wouldn't be where it is today.
The 1970s brought to the peaks, well, the 1970s. The club and its members were moving with the times. Growing up at the peaks brought with it some unique experiences.
Young love at the peaks. Wow, there was a lot of action in those bunk beds downstairs.
The culture of the peaks back then, a lot of pranksters, a lot of joking happened around.
Yeah, in those days, kids were not to be seen or heard. They were to be in the basement once après ski hit.
So every Saturday there was an après at the West Lodge, and it meant that the parents were upstairs at the West Lodge.
The upstairs, the adults were bringing it on bigger than Ben-Hur. A kid wouldn't even think about entering the upstairs.
To go into that, where the fireplace is at the West Lodge, there were these big wooden doors. You couldn't open those as a kid. You weren't allowed to open them. There were windows up top. You could jump up to see what the parents were doing in there, but we never, ever were allowed to be in there when they were in there having their après.
It was blue with smoke, and they were partying and carrying on, and we were downstairs watching Herbie and the Love Bug.
Those movies, if you talk to any of the GP60 kids, they'll tell you the one that scared them the most, the one that they learned the most about life, because these weren't Disney.
It was some island series. It was the creepiest, weirdest movie. But we watched it, the Kirbys, the Townsends, the Skinners, the Owens were probably in there, Crawfords, like the whole gang, all the kids on the property would come, and I think you paid $1, and we all sat on the floor.
It was Carry On Camping, which is English, like semi-porn, basically, and horror movies, like Vincent Price horror movies. And we sat and watched those things on the sticky floors down in the basement. Yeah. But when they were done, you were to wait. You were to wait down there until your parents came to get you.
And at the end of the day, we'd all go home happy.
The West Lodge never slept, even in summer. The Peaks Summer Club was a popular part of everyone who was fortunate enough to call the Peaks home in the summertime.
As a younger child, up until about 13, 14, the summer club was really exciting. Everyone got together, from having your first beer behind the clubhouse to playing spin the bottle to tennis lessons.
Well, the kids treated it like summer camp. I mean, I'm really more excited about the summer part of it because it was like a camp, and parents didn't mind telling other people's children off either. And it was okay.
And so we created a summer club, which went on to become very popular. The liquor license helped, but we had over 300 members in the summer club at one point in time.
And had a wonderful time because our children never went to camps. They always just came up there. And then played with each other.
Young Love blossomed downstairs. So as well as it being a movie room downstairs, that's where the dances were held. And you just hoped that the boy that you liked asked you to dance Stairway to Heaven.
I remember a couple of parties where we wore the grooves the best of bread.
Best one of the documentary so far.
For sure, if Katie Wilkins was here, she would say, "Yes, I kissed your brother," and he was wearing a velour shirt.
The 1980s for Georgian Peaks brought with it new challenges and a change in direction. Ownership of the Peaks over the years had changed a few times. By March 31st, 1987, the Peaks had come full circle to fulfilling Buck's dreams that one day the club would own its own hills.
Every Saturday morning we'd get up and there were 50 busloads of ravens here. And it was tough sledding out on the hills.
24-year-old lifelong Peaks member Michael Owen saw opportunity where others saw none. He approached Gord Canning, then president of Blue Mountain, with an offer anyone could refuse.
I put a proposal together for Gord Canning very naively, which of course lacked any financing. So it was a bit of a laugher in terms of his willingness to accept it. You know, not gonna happen unless you've got, you know, $4 to $5 million. That was a bit of a hurdle, and I had hooked up with a guy named Al Ellsred, who was very instrumental in really executing the plan in terms of when we closed the deal to buy the property in the fall of 1986. Al Ellsred was able to locate a guy named Lenny Godet, who was a member of, and he was willing to finance the deal. And we did the deal over the next summer, basically. And you know, the rest is our new history, I think.
I don't know. I mean, I've got some Lively Cup stories.
The event that I think is iconic. And when you see this, when you go to this event, you'll see members from all kinds of other clubs here at this party on the deck.
If you want to know what Georgian Peaks is all about, the enthusiasm, the fun, the party atmosphere, check out Lively Cup.
1956, my dad and a group of his buddies started the Lively Cup. And in 1961, it moved with my dad to be a member of the Peaks. He was the second wave of members. And it brought a lot of his friends with it, but there was a lot of his friends that were already the Peaks, they're already part of the Peaks here. It was a kind of a speed race where you had teams. The rules were, you know, okay, you couldn't bring in a ringer and musical instruments had to be tuned. Those are the two rules.
You couldn't be members without getting involved in Lively Cup. It was just, you did that. You decided what you were going to wear. It was just the end of the year, and it was just a wonderful, fun day for everyone.
My daughter was born on Lively Cup Day. Wendy Louise Lively Townsend.
Well, I was born on Lively Cup, so I really have a history there. I actually got to light the torch one year when Broomhilda was not available. And that was a big honor for me. I remember skiing down and then handing the torch off, and it was a hibachi on top of a ladder. That was the torch.
Yeah, we have the Lively Cup, and it's now. At first, it was to be given to the team that has the fastest time, combined time. And as I said, it's a time race. And it was semi-serious, and then we started to get teams that had incredibly talented skiers that performed very badly. So there was an award that we decided we would give out to them. It was called the T. Acker Memorial Award. And the T. Acker is a fine piece of artwork, and we have, and there's a lot of people, myself included, that think that this is the preeminent award for the Lively Cup. It was donated by Brian Skinner. I just found that out the other day. And in the back, we've got the names of the various winners. It only goes back to 1989, but I know that this is actually, there's 10 years of winners that didn't dare put their name on it. I don't know why. Anyway, so that's for general incompetence.
And we had girls, ladies that were, what were they called? They all had costumes on and were looking at Lively.
Oh, well, they were the judges.
Yeah, we were judging the actual costumes on the people.
Yeah.
But we,
One year they were
10
all
or 12 of us, all dressed in pink.
Yeah. One year they were geishas.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, we did.
Oh, yeah, the year that they came on horses?
Back, yeah. They came through the race on horseback, too, down the hill.
Yeah, and then the boats. Oh
yeah,
every
the
year there
boat.
was some wrinkle.
Oh yes, I was in Lively Cup from way back, and we won one time we won the prize for the best costumes when we were the girls from St. Trinian's. I think essentially in those days, Brian Skinner always had the ideas of what costume we were going to wear. It didn't relate to anything, so it was really a lot of fun.
So anyway, here's the cup. The cup is, it's remarkable. It has been around since 1956. On the ski tip here is the Puff Club, the 1956 date when they first won it. At that time, it was this block of wood here, painted, and with My Peapody. And so it's suffered some blows, but it's remarkable. I mean, there's some cracks and so on, but we're missing a piece that fell off at one of the more recent Lively Cups. This goes to parties. It's picked up a few things. This is Mini-Me's head from the Austin Powers group. They glued it in. The bunnies from 2002. They put that on. In the back here is a bridal veil that was, because it was actually at a wedding, and so as a memento of the wedding, they stapled that on. It has had a great history, and always I get a kind of a warm feeling when I see people drink from this. But I don't know. I warn them, but it doesn't matter. They still got to take that. The beer tastes better for some reason. The Greek national ski team. You can imagine how they came down the hill. There was the people on water skis are coming down. A couch that came down the hill. Canoes that came down the hill. If they could get it up the hill, problem solved. Now there's no problem getting down the hill, and it didn't usually end well.
Oh, Bill was such a great guy, and that was the party of the year.
As we come to the end of our journey together, we had to show you the alternates, the misfits, the stuff that didn't quite fit, but we couldn't let die on the edit room floor. Enjoy.
Chasing everybody at the end of the day, and we'd climb over people's roofs and on, so Kirby's, Fleming's, Lytle's, Townsend's, Reed's. We were all over there. We'd be up on their roofs, jumping off their balconies. There's nobody. Surprising, nobody killed
Again,
themselves.
we signed a waiver though, so no video games.
There was a waiver,
yeah,
for
there
sure.
were no video
waiver,
games or
yeah.
anything, so it was free-range parenting, really.
I don't think waivers existed back then, did they?
My sister and I were in our 70s attire for skiing in those days, which consisted of jeans and a turtleneck. We would never think of wearing a hat because you don't want to ruin your hair, and I don't even think they had helmets in those days anyways.
One interesting story, a member who shall remain nameless, had tickets left over from the men's ski day, liquor tickets, and asked and felt quite assured that he could use the tickets the following year because he hadn't used them up the previous year.
So it was not uncommon for our snowmakers to have to actually use little rods to clean out the nozzles that were plugged with fish scales and fish bones.
We've got a lot of good down-to-earth people that work here. The core of the people that work here that do such a great job. And in my opinion too, sometimes are a little underappreciated. Well, what can you say about Marg Jones? Marg Jones, aka Mother Goose, she is just, she's the salt of the earth. She is, she just handles so much behind that counter. Does, all the office staff, Jennifer, Tracy, Mark, they're all great.
When we went in to get her badge, she was behind the window. I knocked, waved and said, she's the mother of the club. She looks after, and there's been a lot of other people that have come and gone around Mark, but she's the staple that's always been there.
So the Peaks had the only liquor license of all of the ski clubs in the area. And as a result, a lot of members from the other places, including the snooty people from Osler, would come over and be at the Peaks.
There's a lot of partying went on, yeah.
My favorite place is that little, well, I have two places really, it's hard to say, but Wilson's Wiggle, jumping over right at the top, there's a little, and going over that hedge jump at the top. Like Clay Dolan can pull a backflip off there. I'm not doing that, I'm too old for that now, but you can, on the right days, you can really catch some major air, nice steep landing, and then you can rip a couple turns down there.
I get weepy when I think about the Peaks, and I have nothing but incredible, heartfelt nostalgia for everything that happened to me there, growing up there.
Denise, you get weepy?
No. Denise doesn't get weepy about anything.
When you ski Rogers, everybody used to always ski skiers left, because that's where the chair is. And now I think people ski more skiers right, because that's where the chair is. Maybe it's a bit of a show me factor or something, show off factor.
I'm probably more of a sun-up girl. I like sun-up and coming down minute, cutting off everybody on Rogers.
Most likely followed. I didn't. It was most.
It's the best part.
Don't even ask these questions. Okay. Oh, Jeff, you see, I should never be in front of a camera.
We played hooky on the snowball, which might have been snowball, T-bar. We hid on the T-bar.
Well, you didn't have to hide much because your dad and I didn't really care.
So the question you have to ask yourself is, what's your church? I knew what my dad's was. I know what mine is. And you know what? It all has to have components of Georgian Peaks in it.
My church? Church of the Open Bottle.
I think the main thing about it all is that here we are 60 some odd years later, still friends, and I doubt if any of us have really had a crossword.
That's very, very nice.